What's up everyone? Today I want to talk about Avowed, Obsidian Entertainment's big new RPG, because this game has had a massively polarizing release. Even though the reviews on Steam are mostly positive, the game's still getting a ton of criticism. The user reviews on Metacritic are pretty bad, reviewers have been pretty harsh on the game, and just bringing the name up, just saying Avowed, seems to start some sort of big argument where everyone jumps on and says how bad the game is. So today, I just want to talk about it. Leading up to the release of this game, I had no plans to try it. I watched the trailer, I saw some of the gameplay, and I didn't think it looked very good. So it wasn't on my radar at all, but thanks to Xbox for sending me a code, I did give it a try, and I played a lot more than I was expecting. I've got about 52 hours in the game now. I finished the story, I've got the ending that I was going for, and I've done pretty much every side quest, all the bounties. I've done pretty much everything I want to do. I'm done with the game, putting it down now. So I want to give you my full thoughts on this, and I want to go over the good, the bad, and honestly, if it's even worth trying. So first up, let's talk the story. So I'll keep it as spoiler-free as possible. You play as a godlike. You play as this person who has been given these special powers, and you're tasked with going to the Living Lands, which is the big area with all the zones you go to, and you're stopping this big corruption called the Dream Surge. The Dream Surge is this kind of thing that's taken over the lands, and it's like nature turning against people. It's turning people into these weird plant creatures, mushrooms coming out their head, things like that. It's this big bad corruption. So it's a very typical generic fantasy story of you're this overpowered person trying to save the world. Where it goes from there is very different. But you do not feel like a hero in this game. There are lots of times during this game where you have to make decisions that are very morally grey, and it can turn entire factions against you. So there's 4 main maps, and each one has different factions, different towns, different cultures. And as you go through, you're trying to stop this Dream Surge. There are really big decisions that can gain influence with one, but really upset others. And this can lead to the entire towns being locked out to you. It can lead to entire groups of people not interacting with you. So it's huge decisions. And I've got to some, and I've sat and looked at it, and I've had to step away and just I've not been happy with the decision I went with, even though it's the one I wanted to do, because the consequences were so big. And I think that's a really intriguing part of the game, and it's what kept me playing all the way to the end. On top of this, you're a godlike. So you are, you kind of have an entity above you which you're aligned to, and you have that relationship to discover and learn more about and manage as well. You can be good or bad there as well. And without spoilers, it hooked me. It is very interesting. I've seen a lot of criticisms of the story, and I personally don't get it. I loved the story. I thought it was really well done, and I was hooked right to the end. Some of it was fairly predictable, I'll say. I'd say by the time you get to the 3rd zone, I kind of had an idea of how the ending was going to go, and I was right on that, which, maybe that's a flaw. But overall, the story was really good. It's fully voice acted, and yeah, I really can't fault the story. I'd say it's really good. Okay, now on to probably the part of the game that has the most criticism, and that's the gameplay and the combat. So you can play a multitude of different things into your build. You can be you can have magic spells, you can have melee weapons, you can have ranged weapons like bows and pistols, things like that, and you can mix them any way you want. You can have a sword in one hand and a magic spellbook in the left, or you can have a bow and then flip it out and have a 2-handed greatsword. Pretty much anything you want, and you can build them any way you want. And the gameplay itself holds out fairly well, but I will say this does not feel like a 2025 AAA gameplay experience. In a market right now where we've just had Kingdom Come Deliverance and we're about to get Monster Hunter, the new Monster Hunter, this does not hold a candle to what those 2 games are offering. So I fully say the criticism is valid. And I'll say the combat itself does feel really good. It feels good going sneaking in, doing a long shot with a bow that no one sees, and then going in and throwing a fireball, a meteor, flip into a 2-hander and running and hitting them. It feels good, but as you get further in the game, it starts to feel really shallow. The further the game goes, the more shallow it feels. And I think that's because there's not much depth in what you can do on challenging enemies. So if you have like a boss, I played as a mage, and then I switched over to a more ranged build with bows and pistols. And every single boss is exactly the same: sidestep or evade backwards. And that works on every single boss. Oh, there's an archer, sidestep. There's a big boss charging at me, sidestep. And there was no more depth than that. No matter how many ability points you spend, that worked on the first boss in the game and the last boss in the game. So yeah, I really like the combat. I really love how you have all the different things and you can play a full hybrid. Like it lets you play a hybrid build by just putting points into damage rather than having to funnel into like all into dexterity and now you can't use magic. You can play all of the things at once, which feels good, and you can respec throughout the game. And everything I played with, other than melee, felt really good. I didn't think the melee was great. Everything else felt really, really good. So your first 20, 30 hours feel good. The further it gets and the more challenging it's supposed to look, it doesn't feel more challenging. You know, instead of having 3 enemies, if they throw 20 at you, that doesn't feel any harder because there aren't that many mechanics in the game. So yeah, overall, I'm kind of mixed. I liked it, but I can say it's very flawed. So now I just want to talk about the general good things about the game that would make it worth playing. The sort of things that I've taken away as the best part. I've already mentioned the story. I thought the story was fantastic. Another really good thing is the general gameplay of going through the zones. Like I say, there's 4 main zones, each with its own, you know, town and its own factions. And the gameplay is kind of, you go in, you go to the zone, you go to the new town, you learn about the faction, there's a lot of chat, and then it opens up to the open world of that zone. You go to the bounty board, there are loads of like bounties for different things, and there are side quests scattered all around the zone. And as soon as you've got into the town and got into the zone, that map is then open to you. You can go do side quests, you can go fight different monsters, you can go explore. There's lots of puzzles like, oh, this door needs electric, you know, there's a path here, we need to freeze the water to get over it, things like that. And the general gameplay is fantastic. And it's where probably 3/4 of my hours are. You know, just exploring this massive map full of, you know, monster camp, side quest, bounty, all the way around. It's why I finished pretty much every single side quest and every bounty in the game. I thought it was fantastic. I really like the companions in the game. So there are 4 companions to choose from, and you can go around with 2 at a time. So you have to make a choice of who you play with the most. And then when you go to a camp, you can then interact with them and talk to them, learn more about them, take on side quests. Developing relationships with them will give you like stat boosts and stuff like that. So it's very rewarding. And the characters are pretty good. Every time you get to like a major decision in the story, you can say, let me consult with my companions, and depending on who you've got around you, if you want to be a bit of a badass, you can have the more morally grey characters with you, and they will reinforce your pretty sketchy decisions. Or you can have the more, you know, noble characters with you, and they'll talk you out of any sketchy situations. So I think that's quite good. I went for a more the ends justify the means kind of playthrough. So having those characters around me felt really, really rewarding. I thought they did a good job with that. The items and crafting is really good, and the stats around them work really well. You can pretty much try everything in the game because you can respec. The crafting is like every gear has a like numerical value of damage and abilities and stuff like that. And you can upgrade it through fine all the way to like superb. There are unique items that can become legendary, and there are some side quests hidden throughout the world that can lead to even better items. So overall, it feels good. You're fighting stronger and stronger monsters, and the more you explore, the more side quests you do, the more bounties you do, the more of these cool items you can do, and the more cooler builds you can do. Okay, now for the bad. Probably the number one for me is the lack of RPG elements. You know, when we talk about like full-priced RPGs, I'm thinking like, you know, The Witcher 3, Baldur's Gate 3, Kingdom Come's just come out, things like that. They're full-priced RPGs. And there are a lot of RPG elements that just, I can't say they're bad because they just don't exist in Avowed. So say you go into a town, you can't just go and turn on the guards. It just doesn't exist. You can't do it. You can't go into a shop and steal an item. The stolen items don't exist. If you take an item in the game, it just goes in your inventory because that system just isn't in the game. There's no professions. Like you can craft items at your camp, you can cook at your camp, but there's no cooking skill or crafting skill. You can just do everything all the time. So that outside of getting your skill points and putting them into, you know, your skill tree, you don't feel like you're progressing your character like you normally would in an RPG. On top of that, with your NPCs, I love the companions. I think they're fantastic, but you can't take that any further than what the story lets you do. You can't, you know, get really close and romance them. And alternatively, I haven't seen that you can upset them so much that they leave your party. So that's, you know, it's stuff that we see in RPGs all the time now that isn't in Avowed. So yeah, I'd say the lack of real RPG elements again, I keep using the word shallow, it does make the game feel a little shallow. The only other big criticism I would give, and it sounds like a silly one to make, is the characters look so goofy. And I don't know why. I don't know why they've gone with this art style. The world looks stunning. The weapons look good. The main character you can make looks really good. The armor, the towns, everything about the game just looks so vibrant and exciting. And it's an amazing fantasy world to explore. But it's filled with these goofy characters that just look so dumb. Like, okay, so one of your main characters that you get at the very start of the game is called Kai. And he's this big blue, weird looking character. He's voiced by Brandon Keener, who is Garrus, I think it was, in Mass Effect. One of the most notable, instantly recognizable, one of the best voice actors in gaming. But he just looks so goofy. And I don't know why they've made them so weird. You've got Matt Mercer, who plays a character. He plays a character that you meet quite early on. But an instantly recognizable voice. His character is like this gold, weird, robot-looking character. And it takes away from what would otherwise be such a immersive world with these weird characters. Another one of your companions is this master mage. And they're like a little furry, Vulpera-looking creature from World of Warcraft. And I just... Why? Every character has so much personality, really good voice actors, but they just look so silly. So yeah, it's a criticism for me. I don't know why they've gone with this art style. So I've spoken about the good, the bad, and kind of given my thoughts on all that. But overall, should you play Avowed? I will say I have thoroughly enjoyed my time. I got over 50 hours and I've enjoyed it. I thought the story was amazing. The story is like the number one thing that led me through the game. How all of your decisions kind of come back later to reward you or punish you. Lots of games these days, you make decisions that don't really go anywhere. You know, they will remember this. Doesn't really affect you usually. This game, it does, and they've done it really well. I really like the story. The open world feels good. Going around, doing the side quests, things like that, feel rewarding. I could come on in the morning, and I was there 10 hours later, still playing, losing track of time, which means it's a good game. I really enjoyed it. The combat, although a little shallow, still feels fun. If you don't look too much into it, it feels fun. Overall, I would say this is a good game. I thoroughly enjoyed my time playing it. I'm putting this down as a good game, positive review game. I think the problems though is when you dig beneath the surface, and they are there, you know, the character designs, the shallow end of the complexity of the combat, as you start going through the game, the repetition of the different zones. I think everything starts to, you know, the more you play, you realize the depth isn't quite there. And I think that comes a problem when you look at the pricing. They're pricing this as a AAA RPG title at it's like £59.99, which is probably like $70 maybe, which is the same price as Baldur's Gate was. It's the same price as Kingdom Come is that came out a couple of weeks ago. And when you compare it to those games, it is lacking in so many RPG elements that people are going to complain about, and they will rightly complain because you're selling it at the same price. So me personally, I think this feels a little more on the indie side. Amazing game, definitely worth your time, but I don't know if it's worth that price point. If you have the Game Pass, it's free on the Game Pass, I would get it immediately. If you have the time, if you're looking for a fun game like this with a really good story, fantastic. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. I really, really have enjoyed my time in it. Yeah, overall, really fun game, very, very good story. Could be better. Go into this if you go into this expecting a fun game with a good story, with a lot of things to do along the way, you're going to have a good time. If you go in expecting the next big RPG, I think you're going to be disappointed. But that's it. Let me know what you think if you've tried it. If you put off by the characters like I was, and you didn't think much of the trailer, let me know how you feel after watching this. But yeah, very curious what people think about this because it's been a very polarizing release. But that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the style of the review, do consider subscribing to the channel. That's it. Thank you. Take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.